Good morning, happy Friday, everybody, and welcome to today's Insight webinar. I love these kind of webinars. They're without doubt my favorite, and today in particular, I'm very much looking forward to it because outsourcing is a top topic for a lot of businesses, particularly those of you who are on the Leverage program looking to scale. And today we're going to find out sort of the inside track, not only hear the story of how Sarah took Wealth Enhancers and made a really leveraged business using outsourcing, but also we're going to get it from the other side of the fence as well. And I'm really excited about that, but both because Sarah's got a great story to share, but also some of the tips and tricks we're going to pick up are going to be awesome. Hey, before we kick off, for those of you on the program, this month has been a resource month. So we've been working really strongly on how to get the most out of your team, how to manage workflow in your business, and how to ultimately systematize things. We have one final pit stop, which is next Tuesday. If you haven't been on a pit stop yet and you're on the program and you can make this one, I strongly recommend registering, both for the opportunity to kind of check in with everybody on the program, find out where you're at, but also I'm going to introduce you to what I think is the best method of coaching your staff members. In other words, working with them to get results, not using sort of micromanagement and not using high administrative oversight, but coaching tools. So it's called Grow Coaching, and we're going to cover that as well as other things. But enough about that, because the main attraction today is we're going to be talking to Sarah. She is, as you know, an author. She is the owner, founder of Wealth Enhancers, and she's also one of the powerhouses behind Grow My Team. And today we're going to be talking not only about her journey from taking Wealth Enhancers to being a massively outsourced business and a great business at that, but also her role in working within Grow My Team, which is the outsourced provider I know that a lot of you use and I use, and it's a great business, and we're going to get some tips and tricks. So first things first, as you know, I like these to be really interactive affairs. So do me a favor. I noticed Anne's already all over it. Daryl, you're all over it. Kyle, do me a favor. If you can kind of see the video, you can see Sarah on screen, go over to the Q&A, or actually the chat box, and just type in "good to go." And that'll let me know that you have hands. You can type, you can get some questions out there. Right, Ruben's good to go. Andrew's good to go. Kyle's good to go. James, welcome, man. Scott, you're good to go. Sean, good to have you here, mate. Glenn, welcome, mate. Glenn Pierce and Glenn Doherty, and of course, Anne. Excellent. Do me a favor. I'm a visual person, so I'd love to know where are you right now, and what did breakfast consist of? So type in the box. Let me know, where are you right now, and what did you have for breakfast this morning? I ran out the door amongst a crying child who unfortunately has got Rosalia. Anyway, it's got a rash. I've got my coffee. I've had a protein bar, and I'm ready and go. Home. Glenn says in the home office, eggs and bacon. Love eggs and bacon. Stephen is in Bendigo, peanut butter toast. Ruben in office, he's got muesli and a strong latte. Anne is sitting in the study at home with a smoothie. Yum. James has had oats. Good. Sean got home from kickboxing class. Nice one. Coffee. Got another coffee from Phil. Sarah's in Colorado. Yeah, so she's on the other end. Definitely not breakfast there. Chris, mate, what do I reckon of the 2-2 Spurs result? I think it's par for the course at Wembley, I'm afraid. And the moment I saw that Dele Alli had been sent off, I feared the worst. But thanks for letting me know that, Chris. I hadn't actually seen the final one. But in the office, great. So we got it going. So here's the thing. I'm going to sort of ask a bunch of questions of Sarah. I'm really keen to explore her story. But I also want you to pop up some questions. Your questions about outsourcing, your questions about the journey she's had. Pop them in, and we're going to pull out the best as we go, as well as if we don't get them all done along the way, we're going to circle back and make sure we get your queries answered. So let me, without further ado, I'm going to hang over here. I'm going to unmute Sarah, and with 2 shakes of lamb's tail.
Hello.
Good morning.
Hi.
How are you this morning?
Excellent. It's afternoon here, but I'm great.
Oh, of course, it is afternoon. So what did you have for breakfast, just out of interest?
Well, I'm in America, so I had to have a bagel, of course.
I love it. Love it. Hey, thanks very much for joining us, particularly because you're calling from so far away.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
I've been wanting to get you on a webinar for quite a while. So when we started chatting about this about a month ago and you agreed to come along and have a chat, I was really delighted because I think the experience you've had and the experience you continue to have, I think is super relevant to a lot of people who are interested in leveraging their business.
Awesome. Yeah. Looking forward to talking about it.
So you're actually in a pretty special place right now. So do you want to let everybody know what's going on in your life? Where are you? What have you been doing?
Well, for the last 12 months, I've been basically based in Colorado in Beaver Creek, which is one of the best ski resorts in North America. And I absolutely love it here. I get to ski every day. I'm up to day 63 for the season, which started in November. So I'm a very happy camper. Summer's awesome here as well. A lot of hiking, a lot of outdoor activity. But yeah, basically made the move over here after living in Sydney for a couple of years and turning the company remote so that I can live this lifestyle.
And was this always the goal, to go remote to be able to do this, or was there other motivators driving you?
Yeah, I think it wasn't like always the goal from when I first started my first company, but definitely one of my life goals is to travel a lot and to live in a lot of different parts of the world and have all of these, really incredible different experiences. And so about 3.5 years ago, I started thinking about, wanting to live overseas again and wanting to turn the company a bit more remote. And I was pretty stuck with how to do it. But yeah, basically got started one step at a time, and I can go into more detail about that. But yeah, so the last 3-4 years, it's been a really big goal, and it was good to make it happen.
Love it. I think I quit corporate in about 2009. I think one of the big motivators for me was reading Tim Ferriss's 4-Hour Workweek. And he talks about mini retirements and doing all that sort of stuff. And I think, the idea of being able to travel and do that remote thing it's become easier and easier and more appealing, I think.
Yeah, that's a great book. I really like that book as well. And I totally agree. I just think that we're so blessed that we live in this time where we can, particularly in our profession, everything can be done online basically. So it really frees us up to live a lifestyle a little more by design, I guess.
Absolutely. And I think there's more and more advisors who are kind of embracing it. I remember last year, do you know Dean Holmes?
Yeah.
Yeah, he did the same thing. He moved to London and he pretty much told none of his clients, and then just sort of let them know about it. And we did a webinar on how he managed the tools and the tech and the outcomes. And the amazing thing that came out of that was it actually improved his relationship with the clients, because there's actually more engagement, which is interesting side effect.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. I mean, we kind of did a similar thing. Like, we didn't make a big deal about the move, and I think that was smart because also people weren't really thinking about it, and then they realized that the business was still just the same as it always had been, and they're just happy about it happy for us. Yeah.
So I'd love it if we could kick it off by just give us a bit of background. I mean, how did you get into advice? The genesis of you as an advisor. I'd love to know more.
Yeah. I was probably destined for it. I didn't realize at the time, but that's what my dad did. And I spent my life when my parents were still together up until I was about 10, hanging out on the weekends and sometimes during the week in their offices and, basically being around the industry without realizing that I was. And then when I moved to Brisbane when my parents split up, and when I was 18, I came back to Melbourne, and pretty soon after started working for my dad in his business, doing admin, doing IT stuff. And I was studying IT originally, but then as I started to learn more about financial planning and financial advice and what it was, I thought, wow, like that's just an amazing career, like to be able to work with people and use that problem solving part of your brain, because I love a challenge. I love solving problems, but doing that to help individuals, I just thought that's incredible. So I started doing my study then, my Bachelor of Business with a major in financial planning, so that I could really know how to run a business and really know how to give great financial advice, and became a financial advisor in his business first. And then started thinking about, I guess I had the entrepreneurial spirit as well from him probably too. So I started thinking about, what my ideal financial planning business would look like. And ultimately in 2009, went out and started my first company, which was a private wealth management firm.
Okay.
And then I can talk about the genesis of Wealth Enhancers if that's of interest.
Yeah, was it a natural sort of development out of what you were doing, or was it a complete sort of pivot?
It was. I guess it kind of happened naturally, but it is quite a different business model. But essentially, what happened was, Finn and I met and we started the private client business, and it was very typical kind of high net worth, private wealth management, portfolio management type business, mainly SMSFs. And it was a great business, and I loved working with all of those clients. They were just amazing people. And we would always ask them like, oh, how did you get to the point where you're at? Because they're all very successful. So while we were giving them financial advice, they were also kind of mentoring us a little bit, which was great. And they all said, well, we started young, we had advice from a young age. And that kind of got us thinking, well, who's advising our generation? And we'd started building wealth together, and, kind of had these strategies and this philosophy that we were using. And then a lot of our friends and people we knew that were our age would be saying, well, can you give us advice? All of that kind of thing. And we were like, oh no, we're not really set up for that. And we started looking around who we could refer them to. And we realized at the time, which would have been around 2011, no one was really giving advice to Gen Y. And so we thought, all right, let's give it a go. So we kind of started it within the other business, and then fairly quickly spawned it out into its own company and just went from there. And we sold our private client business, which was called WE Private, in about a year and a half ago, so that we could focus exclusively on the Gen Y business, on wealth enhancers, and I just love it.
Okay, so in terms of selling the private versus the WE, was it clear which one you wanted to do, and why did you sell? Why didn't you just run both of them at the same time?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think it wasn't clear. I think we got to a point where we had this really great, our private client business was a really great company. It was well established. It was profitable. We ran it pretty lean. We had one staff member in the Philippines doing a lot of admin work, and then there was like a portfolio manager and an advisor, and that was basically it, and Finn and myself. And so it was a great business. But in terms of growth opportunity, we just didn't know if it was there. And then we had wealth enhancers where, it was definitely very much still in startup phase, but we thought, well, there's a lot of opportunity here and no one's actually doing it. We just weren't sure what to do. So we ended up engaging some consultants to kind of have a look at things and give us some advice. And the advice they gave us was to sell the private client business and focus on wealth enhancers. And initially we were like, no, we're not doing that. We're going to keep running both of them, that kind of thing. But after a few months of thinking about it and letting that advice sink in and really thinking about where the opportunity lay, where we could really make an impact, and what we were more passionate about. And I think it became pretty clear that, we'd probably, we'd had our time with the private client business. We were okay to sell it to someone who, could take it on and do what they might want to do with it. And where our passions really lay were helping people our age actually build this amazing dream life that they do have the opportunity to build.
And I've seen the wealth enhancers. There's the messaging is so clear. The niche is so well understood. Is that something you just you had from day one? Did it come from being one of your target market, or was it something you really had to work hard to get insight into?
I think it came from day one. I mean, certainly fairly early on, we knew we wanted to work with high achievers, high performers, people like us, people who have, I guess, the opportunity to really grow their wealth. We know what it's like to be someone who wants to push boundaries and go hard in all areas of your life, and we knew that we could relate to those people best, and we know how to get the best out of them. And so essentially we just developed our target market around that. So it's essentially entrepreneurs, sports and entertainment professionals, and professionals that are Gen Y.
Yep.
So it's the high potentials, the people that want to push every area of their life and be their absolute best.
The tool.
So yeah, I think we knew it pretty early on, and we spent a lot of time defining that. And we still do spend a lot of time, talking with our team about what that means and what they look like and how we can best serve them.
And I think the two, the messaging or the value prop, whatever you call it, that really hit home for me with wealth enhancers is the tall poppy thing. Mm-hmm. I think every time I go to the States, I'm struck by the fact that, and I actually think it's the English history of Australia, which is there's such a tall poppy thing, whereas you rise so high and we cut our heroes down, whereas in the US, it's the exact opposite. And I actually think I understand people's reticence to kind of go for the US model, but it's a lot healthier to kind of build people up and not knock them down.
Yeah, exactly. And it's something that I feel like I've experienced my whole life where, you do something great and you expect the people around you to be happy for you and be proud of you, but often, they're not. And often people, the Australian culture is to find a reason or a way why you achieved that success and they didn't, or they think you're arrogant or egotistical. And I find it really challenging because for me, when I see a friend or, a member, a Wealth Enhancers member or a fellow financial advisor achieve something, I just think, way to go. I think it's bloody amazing and well done. And I struggle with the fact that the mentality in Australia isn't that way. And that's another reason why I'm in the US, because I love it over here. If you're doing well, people want to support you and want to be part of that journey and want to see how they can help you. And it's just great.
I think it's changing slightly, but yeah, I mean, there is still that sort of constant war between, pulling heroes down and building people up. The other thing which really I love is there's a phrase I think you use a lot on your website, which is "we're not your parents' planner."
Yeah.
Tell me about that. I mean, was that something that evolved, or was it give me the details of when that came to you guys?
Oh, I don't really remember. I think it's just something just popped into my head. I have a lot of random stuff that just pops into my head. But I think, the messaging behind that is really that we understand you. So I think Gen Y are a really unique generation. We are different to previous generations. And I think that you have to understand that we need a balance of lifestyle now and moving toward this amazing dream life that we want to create. We're not a generation that will save just because it's good practice to save 20%. Like that doesn't get to our core. That doesn't motivate us. We're very driven by passion and purpose. So it's all about tapping into, what do you really want your life to look like? What's really important to you, and painting that picture of what that will be while not sacrificing too much of the now. And so, and the other thing is we'll party, we party with our members. When we had our office in South Melbourne, we used to have these legendary frat parties. We had about 6 of them over the years, where we would play beer pong and there'd be a bottle of tequila running around getting poured into people's mouths, and we would just get crazy with them. It wasn't what people would expect of a financial advisor. We'd have a DJ, we'd have kegs. It was fun.
I'm keen to sort of, I reckon we could talk for an hour about the evolution of the EE model, because I think it's a fascinating topic, but I know people are here because we do want to talk about outsourcing, but I do want to touch on one thing. It feels like Wealth Enhancers, it's almost like you built it as a reflection of what you love and what you like and your personality and the beer pong and everything. And I see a lot of businesses that they kind of build what they think the clients want, and they put on a bit more mask and don't necessarily let themselves hang out. What would be your advice to someone who, has got a business that doesn't reflect their personality and maybe wants to test the waters a little bit?
I mean, I'll just say go for it, because I know I feel more comfortable and more at ease, and we're having more success since we have just started being ourselves. I feel like up until I was about 25, I was trying to be taken seriously. I was this young blonde thing in financial services, one of few females, particularly back then. And I'd be wearing a suit every day and walking around with my collar all sharp and trying to fit in with the guys and be really professional and serious. I used to go to all the industry events and not drink a drop because, I just wanted to be seen as really serious. And I think it was just refreshing once I started going, you know what, I'm just going to be a bit more like me. I'm going to wear the clothes that I want to wear. I'm going to speak, I swear, a lot. So I'll try not to swear on this podcast, but I do. And sometimes I swear in my blog posts, and people tend to respond to that actually better than they probably would if I was writing some really boring thing that wasn't me. And so I think it is about being you. This is me. I like to ski every day. I do like to party and have fun. I like to be fit. I'm healthy. I'm vegan. There's all these elements of who I am. And I bring that to my company. I bring that to who we are and what we do. And I think it's very freeing. And I think people are attracted to that more so than, trying to be something that you're not necessarily.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, one of the things that we're working on, we're going to do a webinar, is about how to train your clients. And I mean that in a respectful way. It's if the expectations your clients form are that I phone you on the weekends and this is the way you engage, that's what they'll come to sort of believe. But if you train them that this is the way things are, this is the way my model is, this is the way you contact me, and by the way, this is how I'm going to, they've got a choice to make. Do I want to deal with this person or not? And frankly, if they don't want to deal with it, there are plenty of people out there who are likely to step in and go, actually, you know what, I like your style and I want to do it. And that's one of the benefits of social media. It's sort of driven this cult of micro celebrity where you can be well known within a very small group of people.
Yeah, and I think just one final comment on that, particularly in relation to social media. We work in an industry where people don't just look you up, see you for the first time and book an appointment. They just don't. They will hang around for a year or two looking at you, getting to know your brand, and then they will decide whether they want to engage with you or not. And that's where I think, we are so lucky that we have social media and all these different, blogs and webinars and all these different ways that we can get our message out. And so being yourself, people are attracted to authenticity. Yeah. And as I say, they will be around for a while watching before they take the plunge into booking an appointment with you.
Absolutely. And I know there's a whole bunch of names on this webinar that we've spoken about, we've talked about, and it's just great to sort of have that opportunity to connect with people, even if they don't, engage. You've got that kind of connection. James says, really well said. Phil Thompson also mentioned that he totally agrees. So Spina, I've got your question. We're totally going to ask that. And just quickly from Henry, he wants to know, why Beaver Creek? Why not Valley? Or do you ski both?
Vale.
The Vale, sorry.
I'll tell you why I like Beaver Creek, because it's 10 minutes past Vale. And if you've ever been to this area, there's about 5 resorts out of Denver on the I-70, and we're the last one, which means we're not busy, and it's awesome. So I do love Vale, and I go over there. It's a 10-minute drive, and I go ski there, but the lift lines are insane. It's so busy, and Beaver Creek is like this little hidden gem that has some pretty great skiing as well. So yeah, but I love this whole area.
It's a great name, Beaver, as well. It's kind of weird. I know Colorado's got great skiing, but I still think Colorado's not far from Nevada. Nevada's a desert, and it just weirds me out a bit. But anyway.
Part of Colorado's a desert. But yeah, we also have a liquor store here called Beaver Liquors. It's funny.
That's excellent. Yeah, Henry just said, go to the He's there. He knows that Henry's a skier. So let's talk about the outsourcing thing. Give me an idea of the genesis. Like, when did you sort of start to make this decision? When did you start to see it as viable? And what were the first steps towards leveraging the outsourcing?
I think like a lot of I'd heard about it and I knew about it, and I'd probably used a couple of people project work on Freelancer or Odesk or something like that. And I joined EO, Entrepreneurs Organization, and I had some friends in EO that were really doing it, very well. And so I started chatting to them and saying, well, can you help me get started? Because I knew I wanted to start, but I was nervous and scared, and I didn't know where to start and all of those kinds of things that I'm sure we all sort of feel from time to time. And then they were good enough to help me work out which role was like a good first role. And for me, that was like a financial controller or a CFO, like someone to do all of the bookkeeping, the reporting, all of that. Because I thought, well, that's sort of really not going to interfere with a member's experience with us. It's not going to interfere with anything kind of member facing. It's very behind the scenes, and it's not even really that operational in terms of the rest of my team. It was kind of something that sat a bit separately, so I could test it out and just see what it was like. And I ended up hiring Michelle, who still works with me 3 and a bit years later. And she's amazing. So she's my CFO. She costs probably almost a tenth of what she might cost if I had to hire her in Australia. And she's still earning a great wage for her, which is excellent. But it really showed me what could be done. She was previously a CFO for a large company, so she's got a lot of skills and experience. And, all of a sudden, all of that bookkeeping and financial reporting work that was a bit of a headache for me and only just getting done on time was now being done on time. But not only that, we could actually do it better. We could do more. We could build in more reporting, really get my finger on the pulse with a lot of things. So it was sort of that first step of mapping out what's a role that I'm comfortable with, and taking some time interviewing people and just trying it. And it blew my head off. I was like, this is amazing. Like, I need to do more. And so from then on, it was like, how do I just find more people? And then I guess like organically then the business just changed. So we went from having 14 people in our office in South Melbourne over 3 years to moving into co-working spaces in Melbourne and Sydney, and to now having, I think, 5 staff in Australia and 12 overseas, or sorry, about 10 overseas. So, but don't get me wrong, I didn't like fire everyone and hire all these new people. It was more like an evolution, like as the business changed, people who probably maybe weren't necessarily right for the company moved on to something that was more suited to them. and we would replace them with someone in another part of the world. And it's just been an incredible experience. The business has gotten better in terms of systems and processes by a mile. I think we don't have any like office politics or crap to deal with because people are not in each other's faces, so they just generally like each other and get on pretty well. Not that I ever really had that, but I think it does eliminate some of that stuff.
Yeah.
And it cut costs. I think we cut around $200,000 a year out of our expenses. That really wasn't adding anything to the business, like having just offices and desks and computers and tea and coffee and all of this stuff that you have to pay for. We just got to cut that out, which was good as well.
So CFO, and what was the sort of evolution? I'm actually surprised that you went for a bookkeeper first, because a lot of people would look at it and go, you know, that's the last thing I'd want an overseas person looking after, which is the numbers.
Yeah, it's true. I don't know.
So that what else followed? Was it was it paraplanners? Was it?
I think paraplanner was next. That's Rob, and he's still with us as well. So he's about 2 and a bit. He just had 2 years a month ago. I remember he wrote me this email. It's pretty cool, saying how amazing he loved working with us and how it changed his life. But anyway, I think he was next about 2.5 years ago, and then started going on to the admin side of things, so the sort of advisor support type stuff. Again, Rob just blew me away from a paraplanning perspective. Like I've been looking for different options for paraplanning and looking at, solutions where you pay per plan and things like that. But, we had such a unique way of doing things, and I know we all think that, but I feel like we just had our way, and that's how I wanted it to be done. And I just thought, no, I'd rather just train someone. And the other thing was, yes, he could prepare plans, but there was a whole bunch of other stuff that he could do for us as well, like help the coaches prepare for their sessions and write up file notes after meetings and, help implement some of the advice or prepare new advice for an existing member or whatever it might be. So that, again, blew my mind that there was so much more that I could build into that role. And then I think we went to the admin support side of things. Just kept going from there. So basically everyone in the company now, my marketing manager is in Romania, our graphic design, like designer and web developers in Bolivia, admin staff are in South Africa, Vietnam, Philippines, like basically anything that's not a financial coach, which is what we call our financial advisors, are offshore now.
So this is interesting. When you talk about offshoring with a lot of people, they instantly think Philippines, India, etc. But in actual fact, I mean, I think you've got a personal assistant in the US, or you had a personal assistant in the US.
I did, yeah. She's finished up with me, but yeah, I did.
You've got people in South.
5 on my hands now. I don't need a PA.
So it's, and I know I've spoken to a lot of people who have particularly work in development, and they say Romanian coders are amazing, as are anyone from Eastern Europe, and Pakistani developers also have a really high standard. So someone turned around to me and said, "Oh, do you just use outsourcing for the cheapness?" And I said, "Actually, it's more about the fact that I've looked around locally, and I just can't get the quality of person that I can get offshore. And the fact that it's a lot cheaper as well, it looks and says I can pay 4 times as much for someone who's a third as good. It doesn't make sense."
No, I totally agree. And like initially I was definitely interested in the cost savings, but as I've gone along the journey, now I'm more interested in the global talent pool and just who I can get my hands on that's going to be a great cultural fit for our company, that's right for the role. And, some of them are not cheaper, sometimes they're not.
Yeah.
But it's just about getting great people in my team.
There's a bunch of questions coming through, and I don't want to sort of move on without talking about them. And the one that's come out from Despina, and also Adrian's mentioned it. Despina's asked, she's looked into outsourcing. The licensee is very strict. She wants to know about cybersecurity. And Adrian had a similar question. He's just hired someone from the Philippines for XY. Awesome experience. She's doing a great job. Can you shed some light on the specific challenges around data security and privacy issues for financial planning?
Yeah, I mean, obviously some of the licensees and stuff are a lot stricter on it, that kind of thing. I think it really comes down to your business, your systems, your processes, like what technology you're using and stuff. So simple things like locking down access to things that they don't need, I think that's important. So only give people access to what's relevant to their role. Yeah. We use, like for passwords, for example, we use My One Login, and there's another one called LastPass.
We use
those kind of things where essentially you give, like with My One Login, you can share passwords with everyone, but they can't even see the password. They use the plugin to log in. And that means that if they ever finish up with you, you can just turn off their access and they don't have any passwords. So, nothing's ever 100% foolproof, but I think my view on it is neither is it in Australia. Like, you can hire someone in Australia and they could do the wrong thing as well. So I think it's about taking all of the security measures that you can with the technology that you use, and I think looking for more technology that will allow you to kind of turn off and on access to different parts of the business and all of that sort of thing.
What was the LastPass and what was the other one you mentioned?
My One Login. With the number one, yeah.
Oh, right.
I think there's one, Dashlane, I think is pretty good as well.
Yeah, I think that's a newer one, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so.
Dashlane.
But stuff like that, I think you just got to do everything you can and also be able to show that you're doing everything you can, like keeping all your passwords in a spreadsheet or a Google sheet that everyone has access to, probably not a great idea.
No, not a good idea.
Yeah, whereas use a password manager and might cost you a little bit of money, but at least you're doing your absolute best. And that would go for whether you have staff locally or offshore.
Another option, or something that I've spoken to businesses about, where you've got a lot of licensing restrictions, is you can always have a sort of desktop machine in the office and give someone literally remote access. So they're literally logging in and they're seeing on screen almost like a web version of your desktop. Obviously, you're going to have some issues with the slowdown potentially if they're not on a great connection, but it means that literally they have no more access than somebody who they're actually sat in front of the computer. So that's definitely an option.
Yeah.
Actually, this is a good question. Sean says, can you share some insight into how or what you've learned about using advice software, CRM, and task project management? And what are you using to sort of pull it all together?
Yeah, so Basecamp 3, the new Basecamp, is amazing. So we basically use Basecamp. We don't use Xplan or any of that software anymore.
Yeah.
One, it's so expensive. And two, I just found it clunky and it took a long time to really get it customized to what I want. But I don't want to bag it out because it is a really powerful software. But ironically, we ended up developing our own modeling spreadsheets for all of that sort of thing.
Okay.
And we use Google Drive and Google Docs to keep all of that stuff. But Basecamp 3 is basically what we use to manage and run the entire company. So every single member is set up with their own project. And within that project, you've got task lists, file notes. You can upload documents and all that kind of thing. There's a chat function which kind of works like Slack. So when we moved to Basecamp 3, we stopped using Slack and we just use the chat function in Basecamp 3 now. It's got email forwarding and you can email the client in and out from Basecamp. It's got some scheduling stuff like a calendar and everything. But it's sort of hard to explain. It's essentially a project management tool, but that's what we use to ensure that we deliver every piece of service commitment to all of our members, and we have all of our notes and everything in one place.
Yeah, we use a similar tool called Teamwork. I used to use Basecamp, moved across, but it's the same thing. One project per client, per member, and then it's task thread templates which you load in as and when you need it. But it's the integration thing which annoys me. I wish there was more API stuff in financial planning software, but it's still a long way away.
Yeah, and I mean, we use Zapier to create so many integrations between some of the things. So we use like ActiveCampaign as our big database and our email marketing and everything, and we'll use Zapier to like push things between AC and Basecamp, and I don't know, there's lots of different things like that. I mean, I'd love to go back to financial planning software, but all of these other softwares are just developing at a pace that is so much faster than these Australian-based financial planning softwares can develop, unfortunately.
Absolutely. On the Basecamp thing, I'll pull this question out, James, because it's relevant. How do you set up workflows in Basecamp?
Yeah, so every single thing we do in our company has a process, which for us is a task list. So it might be called new insurance application, and it will have a series of 10 tasks or whatever that have to be run through. There could be one that's like just generally welcoming a new member, and that might be send them their new member box, introduce them to the Facebook group, blah, blah, blah. So every single thing has a task list, which is essentially a workflow, and those tasks are set to the different various people in the business that need to action them, and you can make notes on the tasks and things as well, which is good.
So it's
Virtually every single thing in our business has a process.
and they're time coded, right? So
yeah, so we use what's it called? Shit. There's a time tracking software that plugs into our Basecamp,
okay,
and I can't remember the name of it right now. But so when you work on a task, you just hit this little arrow and it starts timing, do the task, and then you finish it. And that's really cool because we actually then can report per project, which is essentially a member, and we can see how much time we've spent on that member this month, last month, whatever, which is really great. And sometimes if you let members know or clients know how much time you're spending on them, they're like, wow, I didn't realize, sometimes they don't realize all those little things that we're doing behind the scenes for them, as well as face-to-face stuff. So, yeah.
Absolutely. Okay. I think Sean says it's called Harvest, potentially.
Yeah, I don't think we use Harvest, but Harvest is another good one. What's the one we use? I'll think of it.
That's the great thing about it. We use Slack, we use Teamwork, which sounds like it does really similar things.
Yeah.
There's all these little plugins that are coming in now.
Asana, I think, is another good one, like Basecamp as well. Yeah.
And Atlassian have just bought Trello as well, which is it's gonna be interesting to see what they do with that. There's some great questions coming in, so I'm keen to sort of move on and talk a bit about what are the tips and tricks from both sides of the fence. But let's there's some great questions, so if you don't mind, I'm going to go through some of them. Henry just wants to know, like, how did you source these outsourced people? How did you access the global talent pool? This kind of feels like an opportunity to talk a bit about maybe talk about, you're there, you've got this financial planning business, you're sourcing these people. At some point you've gone, you know what? I want to be involved in that business over there. Can you tell us a bit about that?
Yeah. So essentially what happened was those people that I was chatting to back when I wanted to start outsourcing, who had been doing it a lot, started a company called Grow My Team, and we were one of their first clients, and we invested in the business right from the get-go. So we're pretty much shareholders and involved from day one. And so they had like a recruitment manager and their admin stuff, and they were recruiting all of our staff for us. And then after about a year and a half, so I think it was about a year and a half ago, Finn and I made the decision to buy them out because I think we saw more opportunity for the business than they did. So we bought them out, which was awesome. And I became the CEO of the company, and we've got a general manager, Karen, who's amazing.
She's cool.
Yeah, she's great. And so they basically do all of the sourcing for us. So we've always done our recruitment with them since that first person, basically, and continue to. So we last year also hired in Grow My Team a recruitment manager based out of North Carolina here in the US, who has a lot of experience recruiting from various different backgrounds. So she's come into the business and really turned the recruitment stuff around. I think it was always good, but it's getting better and better. But she and her team are just brilliant at getting a brief from a client and knowing, based on the budget and the type of role and the skills they're looking for and whether they need English or not and all of those kinds of things, they know where to look for that talent. So they use it like a whole lot of different tools like any agency would, I guess, LinkedIn being one of the big ones, but they also have different places they advertise to tap into different talent pools around the world, and they'll present us with 3 candidates when we're hiring, and that's essentially what they do. Yeah, it's good.
That's awesome. It's not just blowing hot air up wherever. I've used a whole bunch of different outsourcing companies, and I was introduced by To Grow My Team, and the one thing which has consistently impressed me is just the quality of the candidates coming through. Every single person you put in front of it, you're looking at it going, wow, this person's done stuff and they've got skills and they're good. And the 2 things have happened therefore. I've been really confident in putting it out to the team and going, show me a paraplanner or show me a digital marketer, and know I'm going to get someone who's done it, not just someone who's fresh off the street and being trained. And the second thing is it's just made me really confident, sort of saying to people that, if you're looking for outsourced staff, this is a good place to go, because there's all this structure in the background as well. It's not just here's your candidate and we're done. There's actually time management stuff. There's if someone doesn't show up, then I think Jet over in the States will give you a call. In the Philippines will give you a call, or whatever it looks like. So it's been really, really useful.
Yeah, we spend a lot of time in Grow My Team working with the team on delivering a great service to our clients. So that's just like a really big part of what we do, because we obviously try to find the most amazing candidates that we can, but in a business like that, you can't 100% quality control your product. Like sometimes things don't work out. So for us, it's all about making it as easy as possible for you to do business with us, find you the best possible candidates, and just always, keep our eye on what's happening and do provide that ongoing management and help you with performance management and all of those kind of things as well.
Absolutely. As well as when stuff goes wrong, there's someone on the ground to sort of, I think Nina, as part of our team, her daughter got very, very sick, and having someone on the ground to make sure she was okay and follow her up and just keep contact, I think was really, really key. What I want to do is I want to talk to you a little bit about tips and tricks, but we've got some questions coming through. I'm going to go through a few of them and just get them answered if that's okay.
Yep.
Let's grab this one. VPN setups. Adrian wants to know, do you use them? Do you recommend them?
What's VPN?
VPN is virtual private networks. The idea behind that is rather than just go out directly via or give someone access to your tools just via the internet, you would set up a private network where only certain people can access it if you've got the password, etc., and they come through that way.
No, I don't do that.
Okay. Adrian,
it's really, really bad. I don't know.
I do, but I use it for watching Netflix US, and that's about it. Yeah, that's that kind of.
Has Netflix. Yeah,
that's great.
I haven't done that for my staff.
Great question from Sean, as usual, man. If not using a traditional financial planning software, how are you producing SOAs?
Yeah, so that's the funny thing. So we had like all this Xplan set up and blah, blah, and we spent freaking years getting that stuff, trying to get it set up right, and it just never really got there. And so, you know what? I ended up going back to building really great complex spreadsheets and using template documents. And yeah, it seems really like antiquated, but it's actually faster at the moment for us. So, I'm really looking for software that's not ridiculously overpriced to do modeling and put it into SOAs. But I just found that to produce the quality that we wanted, we just went back to a really rustic kind of way of doing things. And I think it's probably the most rustic thing we do in our business, but it's working for us at the moment. And yeah.
Cool. I mean, like, that's the funny thing. Everyone wants the 5-minute SOA, and it really we should be getting close to it, but we seem to be getting further away. And
yeah,
sometimes it's one of those things where the easiest solution is just to do it old school. Actually, Adrian, that's really useful. Zapier is something which I think got mentioned, which is a great tool for linking together different systems. If you've got no programming experience, have no intention of it. And Adrian wrote a blog, which I saw recently, all about Zapier and why it's a great tool for advisors who are out there just thinking, you know what, I love all these systems, but I need them to talk to each other. Phil wants to know, how much time and money did you invest in building out Basecamp for what you needed it?
Yeah, so this is the thing, like, ever since my 3-year journey with trying to get Xplan to do what I wanted it to do, I swore to never go for any software like that ever again. That took so much customization and so much time. And, we even paid consultants a lot of money to get it set up, and it was just never where we wanted it anyway. So basically now I look for stuff that is inexpensive. I can understand it. My team can understand it. We can customize it ourselves. We can just get going with it. So similar example was Infusionsoft I used to use for my marketing, and I moved over to ActiveCampaign. Brilliant. With Infusionsoft, I used to have to pay someone to set up all of the automations, and I'd go in there and be like, I don't know how to do anything in here. And then I got ActiveCampaign. I just set it all up myself in a matter of, I can set up an automation in 5 minutes. And so with Basecamp, I guess, obviously getting all of those processes and things has been an evolution. If I was to start a brand new business right now and have to get all those processes in overnight, yeah, sure, like it's going to take time. But over the years, we're always just adding processes and adding things. So when we moved to Basecamp 3 from Basecamp 2, it wasn't that big of a deal. But yeah, get your team on board, get some champions, and just start prioritizing what you want to work on first. But it hasn't been a big deal for us at all because it is so easy to do.
ActiveCampaign is almost like the guys from Infusionsoft broke away and just went, how are we going to build something that's half as complex and does pretty much the same things? And it's cheap.
And it's like $150 a month or something. It's brilliant.
And they charge you for the number of people on your list. So if it starts getting too expensive, you go through your list and go, who are the people? Yeah, it's great. And I think that's a really great rule for task management. I did the same thing. I went down the route of looking at all this stuff, and we just ended up going, you know what? We need to be able to train, implement, and get it up and running within a week. Any more than that, and it's not really helping.
It's just a
Uh,
joke, yeah.
yeah.
Such a distraction for your business. Like if you think of your annual or quarterly targets that you have that you're trying to work on, and then you want to put in like some 6-month software implementation thing in there,
Uh-huh.
like it's just an absolute distraction from what we're trying to do.
The other thing is if staff have to learn how to use the software before they can learn how to use your processes, then you've
Yeah.
got a massive training block. And that's why I think if you're going to systematize your business, which I know you've obviously learned that lesson a long, long time ago,
Mm.
that IP has got to sit outside of someone else's proprietary software, so you can go drop it in and drop it out and plug and play systems out when you need to. Awesome.
Yeah.
Reese wanted to know, do you outsource all your online marketing?
No. So we have our marketing manager is in-house. So she does all of that, but we do use Google. We have a Google AdWords firm that do that. And we also have, I've just finished up with them, but I had an agency doing my Facebook ads for a couple of months, but the results weren't there. So I've cut them and we're doing that in-house again. So she's in Romania, but she's in-house technically, if that makes sense.
Yep, makes perfect sense. What roles have you kept in Australia? I think that's probably a good segue.
All my financial coaches, and then at the moment, my operations manager and one of our member happiness, which is basically like an admin role. So those two jobs, if they were to leave, which don't leave because I love you if you're watching this, but I wouldn't rehire in Australia, those roles. I'd hire them offshore. I don't think they need to be in Australia.
Okay.
I firmly believe that the only roles that need to be in Australia are the financial advisors.
Have you checked out Personal Capital while you've been over in the US?
No.
Yeah, I checked that. They've got a really impressive hybrid office. They've kind of taken the best of Betterment and they've combined it with they've got a front-end personal financial management tool. They've got analytic tools. And then the moment you sort of play around, you hooked it all up, you basically go, okay, I need some help. They put you on a video call and they've got 160 planners based in Delaware, which is obviously the College of Financial Planning. They presented to myself and the other guys who were on the Implemented Portfolios tour, and I was just blown away by their model. And it's
what were they called?
Personal Capital.
Okay, right.
And being in the US, you'll actually be able to get in there and have a play with it and see what the free tools are. But it's kind of like they've taken Moneysoft, they've dropped something like FinCoach over the top of it, so it's not just data. It's and then they've got this ability to just hook you up with a planner there and then. And I think I spoke to them, they can produce a plan in an hour and a quarter. Like they can go from prospect to client in an hour and a quarter. Anyway. Wow. Scott wants to know, do you use outsourced employees for the actual implementation of advice?
Yep. Everything.
And it's worth asking, what have you found in terms of the quality difference between paraplanners, obviously in a different country, trained on our system or trained on the Australian financial services, and those in Australia?
I mean, my two paraplanners, Robert and me, are unbelievable.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I mean, the problem in Australia, I don't know if there's any paraplanners listening, but they don't really want to be paraplanners for long. You know, they want to move on and be advisors and all of that sort of thing. So I'm really happy with my two that I have at the moment, who just love their jobs and love their work, and they're really smart. And so they do they do Kaplan training and stuff. And, you know, we just sort of like share the resources that we already have within the advice team and let them have access to all of that as well. If the companies are doing online training, like the insurance companies or the fund managers, like they jump on that. They have calls with our BDMs, like whatever's needed, and they're brilliant.
I think when I first had a look at it, I was amazed that there's this pool of talent who are actually they're training up, they're doing a Kaplan, they're getting the RG146, and they've been working in Australian financial services for years and years and years. So it's not like you're going with someone who's totally unskilled. Often you're going with someone who's very, very well qualified. Yule's asked this by two different channels, so I'm going to grab it out. Yule is an absolute genius when it comes to tech stuff. There are outsourcing firms that specialize in providing outsourced support for financial services. Usually they put them all in the same, the big office, dedicated staffer. What are your thoughts on using a sort of pool or a company that provides a pool versus actually getting someone who works for you directly?
So I definitely think having a dedicated person is better than a pool. So if you're just outsourcing work and saying, I need this done, and then letting it come back, I mean, my experience and what I've heard is that usually the quality is not quite there, and there can be some frustration around communication, and one time it gets done really well and the next time it doesn't get done that well. Obviously, there's also the model, which I think he might be referring to, where you've still got a dedicated staffer, but they're in an office somewhere. So I think that's not a bad model. You'll usually pay quite a bit more because you're paying for the infrastructure and the management and all of that, of them being in that office. The only other thing I would say about it is you're not accessing a global talent pool. You're accessing that particular city and the people that are in that city. So that might work fine. And I think it's sort of worth trying all these things and seeing what works best. But for me, like, I guess Grow My Team kind of sits in the middle of something like that, where it's a dedicated, they're all about financial planning, and, you know, you've got your staff member who goes to work every day and sits in their cubicle or whatever. And then the other extreme is your Upwork, your freelancer, where you've got people anywhere in the world doing project-based work. We're kind of in the middle, where we have people who work from home anywhere in the world, but they are your dedicated person. They just work for you, and the intention is that they work with you for over the long term. So I think I like to think, I mean, I've been to South Africa and Manila and have visited a lot of these outsourcing centres, and, you know, it's not amazing working conditions for those people. It's not terrible. Like, a lot of them have great culture and all that, but essentially they're going to a huge room with small desks and sitting side by side with thousands of people. I have found in my experience, giving people flexibility and allowing them to work from home, they're super happy. They're just happy people, because they can work from wherever they want to work, and, you know, they can control their environment.
I'll re-endorse that. Like Nina and Rose, who both work with, they're at home, they're in their environment. I'm pretty flexible with their hours because they've proven themselves.
Yeah.
I can't imagine asking Nina to get up, go all the way into the center of Manila in the middle of the traffic, and then come back every day. And I think they're just happier, more productive, and there's more of a respectful relationship because, you know, they've got that sort of freedom.
Yeah, it's a trust on both sides. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. Actually, Yule's got a great question here. What's your experience in getting out of Xplan?
What does that mean? Do you mean like the contract or moving data? Or?
Knowing Yule, it's probably a technical aspect, like exporting data, moving it into other places.
Do I have the right answer to that? Probably not, because I used Xplan in the private client business, and I used Basecamp from day one in the Gen Y business. So I didn't really do an export. But in the private client business, we did use Xplan, and what we did was, and Basecamp, and what we did was just set everyone up in Basecamp, but left the old data in Xplan. So yeah, I don't know if that's that helpful. Chris asked if I can find them a Grow My Team digital marketer anywhere in the world. Yes, we can.
Absolutely.
I can find you somewhere, anywhere.
You found me one. She's been absolutely incredible. She's built a website, a members site. She does everything there, and she loves it. It's crazy. Hey, we're sort of coming to. I reckon we could keep talking about this for ages. But what I want to know is you've learned a lot from the advice perspective, from the advice business. But otherwise, you must see all the mistakes from the other side of the fence, which is from the Grow My Team. All the mistakes people make, all the way they don't onboard people correctly. The fact that whether they don't have processes to begin with. Yeah. So if people are sitting here, either they've got a relationship or they've got a staff member and it's not working, or they're heading into it and they want to sort of not have to learn the hard way. What are the biggest tips you'd make for not stuffing it up and conversely making it work?
Yeah. Okay, great question. I think the biggest thing is getting the training right in the beginning. So the cool thing about having remote staff is that you get better at training, because you don't have someone just sitting next to you where you're going, hey, can you do this? And then 5 minutes later, how are you going? And then they're bugging you all day, and you're just like chatting backwards and forwards. So you don't really have like a formal training program. You just go, come to the office and you'll work it out over the next week or two. When you've got someone offshore, my recommendation is you work out, what they're going to be doing in their role. You work out a training program for each of those elements. And every day when they start, you spend 30 minutes to 60 minutes training them on what you want to teach them that day. Let them then go and have their day, and then book in time with them at the end of the day where you're going to, or maybe even at lunch and at the end of the day, where you're going to review and provide feedback on their work. So I think providing feedback and doing that training like front loaded, really heavy, get it done. I think that really helps start the relationship. A couple of other things would be, they are real people. just because they're in another country doesn't mean they're not real and they don't want to talk to you and be part of your culture and part of your business. So I would include them in any weekly, daily, monthly meetings that you have with your local team. Bring them in to the team just as much as anyone else would. If you're building a remote team from scratch and you don't have other staff, that's fine. Just make sure you're the one having these calls. Use Zoom, Skype, whatever you want to use, and just chat like a lot more often. Having something like Slack or Basecamp chat or Google Hangouts chat or whatever, so you can just sort of be accessible and talk to them throughout the day really helps. If you do have an existing team and you're moving to building a remote team and you're worried about how do you kind of get the existing team on board, one of the things that I've always done is set up little mini teams where you'd have 2 people in Australia and one person somewhere else, and they have to work together in a team now. So they have, and you suggest they have a daily huddle and a weekly meeting or something, so that they're kind of forced to work together, and that quickly helps them break down some of those communication barriers and things like that, and helps the local teams see them as real people. What else would I say? Yeah, that's probably my main tips.
We have a process, a module that we work through called VA onboarding, and it's a 2-week structure, and it goes down to even the level of talking about, tell me a bit about your family, tell us a bit about, how you like to work, how do you like to be communicated to, and you also tell them this is the way I want you to communicate. I find we had to get to a point. There's 2 things I had to cover off with my staff. Firstly, we had to break down this barrier. I wanted them to tell me when I was making things hard for them, when I'd stuffed up, because otherwise they were going to be super polite about it. And the second thing is I had to just get across the fact that when I was making fun of them, I actually liked them. It's an Australian thing that doesn't translate. Yeah. And I said, no, I'm making fun.
That's actually probably the final thing that I was going to say, and I forgot, was culture. So we have regular conversations about cultural differences, and we do it in a really fun way where we all get together and we say, tell us something funny about your culture. And I think it's really important. An example I have is I've got a team lead who's based in South Africa, and South Africans are super direct. There's no, hey, how you going? They're just do this, do that. They love you, but that's just how they talk a lot of the time. Filipinos, on the other hand, are they're not direct at all. And they're very polite. And so I had these 2, and they weren't working well together at all. And then I had to have I've just brought them together. I said, let's just talk about the cultural differences. And that conversation just changed everything, because they were they just understood each other. And the Philippine staff member realized that the South African wasn't yelling at them all the time, and that they really liked them. They're just quite direct. And the South African realized that, the Filipino who wasn't always answering exactly what was being asked of them wasn't doing it because, they weren't responsible or whatever. It was just a cultural thing. So having those culture conversations is super important, especially when you have quite a broad range of people in your team.
There's a webinar around 2 or 3 months ago called Running Tribal Council, which is how to run a virtual planning day. And every 90 days, we get everybody together on it, something like this. Everybody's lined up at the top of the screen. It's a 2-hour session. It's a 2-hour session followed by next day a 2-hour afternoon session. And we've got a structure to it. And one of the things that really works is at some point about half an hour before the end of the first session, which is the morning session, we go on and we order pizza. So everybody gets their pizza delivered to where they're actually at. We all eat virtual pizza together. And it's, it just kind of breaks things down. And I think that thing about recognize that, they want to be part of it as much as you do. I've been blown away by how much Nina and Rose care about the business.
Yeah.
It's been really humbling, and so much so that we're all going to Bali. If we nail our targets this quarter, we're all going to Bali, and we're going to do an actual live sort of session, which I think is hugely important.
Oh, that's brilliant. That'll be fun.
Hey, is there anything else? I'm going to go to the questions, but is there anything else you want to talk about? And I guess one of the other things I'd love to know is, what are you working on right now? And if people wanted to sort of know more about your projects or WE, where can they go to sort of connect with you more?
Yeah, I guess I'm really lucky in growing my team that I have Karen, my general manager, and she's brilliant. So she's pretty much focused on growing that company, and I'm just involved from a strategic perspective. So I don't spend a lot of time in it, which is good. I'm mainly focused on wealth enhancers. I have big goals for that company and very big targets. And I guess I'm looking for people to jump on board with my journey there. So yeah, I'm looking for other advisors out there who are passionate about the Gen Y market, who might be interested in joining what's proven to be a really solid model that works, that's growing. So that's kind of exciting for me, really. Wealth Enhancers, I think, is where it's at. I'm just pumped.
So the idea is getting more advisors who are maybe already in the market, but don't necessarily want to grow it on their own. They want to be part of something bigger to come on board.
Yeah, I love to talk to people who maybe even have tried it on their own and are realizing how challenging it is, because it is very, very, very hard. I think it's getting harder and harder to start your own thing and grow it. Acquiring clients is challenging, managing, it's everything we have to do. It's, marketing, financial management of the company, human resources, like there's just so much to it other than just being a financial planner. And we do have a very flexible business. So, you can work with us without feeling like everyone basically feels like they own the company and they're part of the future of the company, versus like someone's the boss and everyone else goes to work for them type of thing.
So if people are interested in talking to you about that, where would they go? Is it a website, or do they just email you direct? Or
I would just say just email me direct. Yeah, I mean, our website is wealthenhancers.community and my email is sarah@wealthenhancers.community. So take a look at our website, email me. Always open for a chat.
Perfect. A good old community. And for those who are interested in going down the outsourcing route, Chris, I know you've mentioned sort of digital marketing, and a few others have talked a lot about sort of getting some support. growmyteam.com.au. It's the firm that I recommend to people. I use it myself. I've got a whole bunch of people who use it, and really, the way you go about doing things is just works, I think. And obviously, with that big focus on financial advice, you're not getting generic people. You're getting people who are suitable for it. I just wanted to say this has been awesome. Every time I sort of sit down and I'll get the opportunity to talk to you, I learn a lot. And it's just such a great experience. Chris writes and says, well done. Thanks to you. A great story and a very talented lady. I think earlier on, Tamara said she joined the webinar 30 minutes late, but loving it. Will there be a recording? Yes, there will. And there was Clem said, loving the recommendations for specific solutions and the reasons behind it. You've been so generous with sharing. And also I love the fact that you've gone really specific and given people some real meaty stuff to take away. Have you got a little bit of time to stay on and just answer a few more questions?
Yeah, sure. And I was going to say, if you want me to write like the answers to all these questions and send them out afterwards, I can. But otherwise, we can just stay here and chat through them.
Have you got to be somewhere? What sort of time have you got to finish up?
No, I'm good.
Okay,
I've got so much time now because I've got such a great team.
When you're not, you're actually a ski instructor now, right?
Yeah, I got certified.
Lovely. How is it hard? Hard to do?
It's not that hard. It's more hard because you know how to ski and then you have to like go back and learn these really basic, it'd be like trying to take a driving test again and then we'd all fail because we'd take our hands off the steering wheel or something like that. Like you know how to drive, but you're probably doing all the wrong things. I'm like a terrible driver. So
doing and teaching, two different things. Yeah. Someone told me the other day that you used to do the 3 o'clock and 9 o'clock. You're not allowed to do that anymore.
Oh,
because of the airbag.
Who knows? We'd all fail.
Yeah, exactly. Let's go through and just grab some of the questions that came through.
Yeah.
Sabina said, is that the CRM and financial planning software Basecamp? I think I can grab that one. No, Basecamp is essentially a task management, project management tool. So it kind of sits between the both. The CRM is kind of the marketing and the managing the interactions with the business. The financial planning software is obviously all of the financial data. That is basically who does what, when, and automating some of the threads. Savina says, how long are your SOAs? And do you do them as a PowerPoint as well versus a printed version?
Yeah, so we use the Google Slides to do the PowerPoint, like the presentation. So we do a presentation as well, for sure. How long are our SOAs? I think they're around 20-ish pages.
That's really good.
Yeah, we try to keep it simple. There's a lot in them, but we try to do it in real language and keep it like as simple as we possibly can. Obviously, you still have all your attachments and PDFs and all that sort of stuff. But yeah, we try to keep it as simple as we can.
Short and sweet. So Tamara says, so it's an SOA plus a summary via Google Slides?
Yep.
Okay.
Google Slides, yeah.
Perfect. Let's go a bit further up. Anything, if there's something you want to answer, just jump in, Sarah, and grab it.
Yul says, do I have these, is there any strategies or models that are beyond our ability in Excel? No, not so far. I don't know. We just find a way. We don't use Excel, we use Google Sheets, but same thing. Yeah.
What was the thinking behind Google Sheets versus Excel? Because I know there's a lot of hardcore Excel warriors who go, no.
Yeah, I mean, I just call their bullshit on that because I've learned how to do everything in Google Sheets after using Excel for years. You really can do everything. We use Google Sheets because we use Google everything. So Google Drive, Docs, Slides, Sheets, and that way everyone can access the file. You don't get those corruptions. We used to use Dropbox and have the Excel and Word docs up there, but you'd always get these like corrupted files when people were working on different things, and not corrupted, but like versions of them. Maybe it's changed now, I don't know, but I just like the Google Suite. It's easy. We use Gmail for everything. Like, everything's just online.
Same. We're in Google, but for some strange reason we're still in. I think it's because it's bringing it across from Dropbox to Drive is just such a big thing that
Drive's awesome. Get involved.
I've heard. Let's have a look. James want to know, are you growing the business in the States or is it completely focused in Australia?
So not at the moment. I'm really open to it, but I would want to find a partner like me over here because I don't personally want to go and get licensed and authorized and deal with all of that stuff again. It's just not something I want to do right now. I feel like it would be a distraction for the business for me to start focusing on that kind of thing. So if I found the right partner, and I actually talked with, I don't know if anyone here goes on those XY Advisor webinars, but there was a chick called Katie Holmes that spoke on it from the US. She lives here in Denver, so we've connected and we talked about it for a while, but she's ended up going in a different direction. But yeah, so if I found someone over here who wanted to be me here, and supported by everything that we've built in our business, I would do it, but I've got to be really laser focused on what I'm trying to achieve in Australia, and we've still got a long way to go to dominate that market in Australia.
That's a really interesting point, because I know you are, by your very nature, a focused person, whereas a lot of businesses out there, they try and do 10 different things and they end up making no progress. So I think it's just the sign when you to go, right, I'm going to do one thing, it makes a lot of difference. Actually, XY Advisor, Adrian Patty, who's on here, is one of the founders and driving forces behind it. So let's have a look. What else we got coming up? How much money time? We did that one. Chris says thanks for sharing Active Campaign. Then we're going to look at Infusionsoft, so reassess. Definitely reassess.
It's awesome.
What are your goals metrics for Australia? Says Henry.
Yeah, I've put it up there. So we're going for 1,200 members by 2019. That's our current painted picture. That we call it a painted picture. It's like a document of what our business is going to look like by the end of 2019. So we're going for 1,200. We're just shy of 200 at the moment. He's asking where we're at the moment.
That's good. A lot of the stuff that's going on in that, maybe you should get up to the Valley and speak to some of the Aussie mafia up there, because a lot of those guys are focused on how do we service 1,000 clients for $100 a month, which I think is a really interesting challenge using technology.
I mean, we're definitely more in the high end, higher fee, high service end of things. I think there's so much room for someone else, and there are other players doing that for the whole market. So for us, it takes a lot longer to get a member, but we're generating at the moment around 50 leads a month, which is pretty awesome. So we just got to keep rolling with them.
That's excellent. There's a good question here, which was around contacting staff, particularly around how do you phone staff. Can you elaborate a bit on the communication aspects with the internet and other than Slack? Is there any other channels that you...
was that about how we phone our members?
How do you communicate? Sorry, no, it's actually the outsourced staff. Sorry, I'm flipping around a bit. But how do you...
we use Zoom. That's the easiest one. It's the most stable, I find. Obviously, Google Hangouts is super easy to jump into, but we found that it wasn't as stable. So we do use Google Hangouts sometimes, but mainly it's Zoom. And then I have the numbers of people and we text each other sometimes. And then we use Basecamp with the chat function, which we did use Slack up until very recently. And Slack is brilliant. It really is such a good tool. So that was a really big part of our communications for quite a while. Yes, we're fee for service, and our fees are on our website as well.
That's a good question, Clem. With the phone stuff,
Yeah,
overseas
they
admin
do.
people, they do. So you've got them phoning and dealing with all that sort of stuff, and it's not.
Yeah, so we use Freshdesk, which is like kind of like Zendesk or one of those ticketing softwares, and it has a phone function, so anyone can have a phone number and they can call out. We used to use Skype Credit, which is another great way of doing it, but we use Freshdesk now, and we can record all the calls if we want to and save them against the members' file. Something we've recently started doing in Zoom, because you can record it as well, is because we do all our coaching sessions online. We're actually recording them and saving them on the members' file. Obviously, we get their permission first and all that sort of thing, but like that's pretty solid, having a record of every meeting you have.
Yeah, it's kind of useful when someone turns around and says, "Oh, what do we cover off?" And you can just go,
Yeah.
"There's the coaching session." It's great.
Yeah.
Hey, I think that's enough. I really appreciate your time. What are you up to? What are you up to now? What time is it over there?
It's 4:00, 4:10.
4:00. So are you going for another ski, or is that it for the day?
Skiing's done. We're going to go to, we've got some guests here from Australia, and we're going to go to the Vail Symposium, which is a regular kind of event here. And we're hearing I don't know if it's the founder or the CEO, it must be the CEO of Coors, the beer company over here.
Oh, yeah.
And then we're going to go out for dinner in Vail. So it'll be nice.
That's actually one of the few American beers that I actually like, Coors.
Yeah.
So look,
you have to come to Colorado and I'll take you to all the breweries. There's so much good beer here.
I've just got this thing about moving to the US at some point. I love the atmosphere over there. As clearly. Thank you so much for your time. It's been awesome. As I said, if anybody wants to get in contact, know more about Wealth Enhancers, it's wealthenhancers.community or Sarah@wealthenhancers.community if you're interested in talking to her about some of the stuff she's doing and working with those who are interested in Gen Y. Otherwise, thanks from me, thanks from Henry and Yul and everybody. This has been great. And enjoy the rest of your evening, and I'll catch up with you soon.
Yeah, thanks everyone. It was great.
Take care. See you later. Thanks.